I'm Johanna Kitchell, Orchestra Director at Riverside Junior High in Fishers, Indiana.
And I am Lani, an Orchestra Director at Alamo Heights Junior School in San Antonio, Texas. And we're going to talk about how to teach your students to produce a good tone. The number one factor to good tone is bowing with a consistent straight bow. Before you go and try to adjust all your students' bows, double check and make sure it's not an issue with their posture setup. I find that a lot of my students have trouble using the entire bow if their instrument is too far back on their shoulder, depending on their body type. Sometimes I see students reaching so far out, especially my violists, to maintain a straight bow. Some students might need to readjust the upper string instrument a little bit forward in order to create a more comfortable line of motion for their bow. You can use various tools to also reinforce straight bow in your classroom. Sometimes we use straws and create barriers by placing them in the F-holes so that the students can practice not touching the straws. For cello bass, it works as well, but you might need to find a bit of a solution to keep them in. Something I like to do as well is an analogy to the triangle, square, triangle. You make these three shapes with a straight bow. Johanna will point them out as I explain them. So when you start at the frog, you're going to create a triangle with your elbow and the line of the instrument. As you move to the middle, you should be creating a square. Last but not least, at the tip, you're going to have another triangle. So you can remind your students to make sure they're maintaining these shapes.
Two other things you can do to help your students with good bowing. One, you could have them use toilet paper tubes or paper towel tubes. You have them take it in their left hand, hold it on the string, and they can bow back and forth inside that. For violin and viola, they can hold the toilet paper tube on their shoulder and bow inside the toilet paper tube there. You can also have your students practice shadow bowing. I don't recommend shadow bowing with the bow above the string. It can cause a lot of tension in the right bow hand, and we want to try and keep that loose and relaxed. I have my students, my cello and bass students, bring their bow underneath the strings and place it against the instrument itself. The bow itself is actually leaning up against the feet of the bridge. They can pull their bow back and forth in a nice motion with the feet of the bridge being a guide. It'll help keep their bow straight. This is also a pretty quiet sound, so you can have students doing this while you're working with others. In the violins and violas, they can put their bow in the crook of their elbow and pull it back and forth that way. Again, it's a nice quiet motion, so you can have your violins and violas elbowing while you're working with other students.